Elara Voss adjusted the collar of her emerald gown, her silver-gray eyes scanning the ballroom for an escape. She had agreed to attend her best friend's wedding only because the alternative, staying home and brooding over the letter she'd received that morning, was worse. The letter. The one that had changed everything. But as she turned toward the bar, a shadow fell across her path. Kael Morro stood there, his presence as imposing as the rumors that followed him. His chiseled face was unreadable, but his eyes, dark as storm clouds, locked onto hers with a quiet intensity. "You're here," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I was beginning to think you'd skipped the wedding." Elara's pulse quickened. She didn't know him, but something in his tone suggested otherwise. "I didn't know you were invited," she replied, her voice sharp. His smile was a blade. "You didn't think I'd miss this? After everything?" The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken history. Elara's fingers tightened around her clutch. "Whatever it is, I'm not interested." But Kael's hand caught hers, his grip firm. "You should be. This is about you, Elara." The chandeliers above seemed to dim, the music fading into a distant hum. Her world narrowed to the heat of his touch, the weight of his words. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. His lips curved into a smile that was both promise and threat. "You'll find out. Just don't run this time." The ballroom erupted in applause as the bride's procession began, but Elara stood frozen, her heart a war drum. She needed air. Needed distance. Needed to forget the way his touch had ignited something in her she'd long buried. "Excuse me," she said, slipping away before he could stop her. 2 hours later, she stood in the marble corridor, her heels echoing against the floor as she paced. The ballroom had been a mistake. A trap. Every glance Kael had given her had felt like a challenge, a dare. She hadn't run. Not yet. But she needed answers. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the letter. She hadn't read it again, but its contents haunted her. Kael's name was on it. Her name. A contract. A promise. A lie. She pressed a hand to her temple, her breath unsteady. "You're not going to find peace in the past," a voice said. She turned sharply. Kael stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You don't belong here," she said, her voice trembling. "Neither do you," he replied. "But we're both here." "That's not a coincidence, Elara." His words were a blade, slicing through her defenses. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. "The truth," he said simply. "The truth about what happened that night. About your mother. About me." Her breath caught. "You don't know her," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew her better than anyone. And I know what you did." His eyes darkened. "You think I wanted this? That I wanted to see you again? Then why are you here?" she shot back. "Why now?" His silence was answer enough. The air between them crackled, thick with unspoken words. "I'm not running this time," she said, her voice steady. "You can't make me." "I don't need to," he said, stepping closer. "You're already mine, Elara. You always have been." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. She turned on her heel, her heart pounding. "I'm leaving," she said, but her voice was weak. "I'm not going to stop you," he said. "But don't think this is over." She fled into the night, the weight of his words pressing down on her like a storm. By the time she reached her apartment, the rain had turned to a steady drizzle, soaking through her gown and leaving her shivering. She fumbled with her key, her hands trembling. The door creaked open, and she stepped inside, only to freeze. The SUV was parked outside, its windows dark. Her breath hitched. Kael. He was here. She hadn't left the ballroom with a plan, only the need to escape, but now, standing in her apartment, she felt the weight of his presence like a phantom. Her phone buzzed again, the letter. She opened it, her eyes scanning the words. A contract. A promise. A lie. And his name. She sank to the floor, her back against the door, her mind racing. Why now? What did he want? The rain pounded against the windows, a relentless rhythm. She needed to think. To breathe. But the sound of footsteps on the pavement outside made her heart stop. The SUV's engine roared to life. And then, Kael's voice, low and deliberate, through the intercom. Elara. We need to talk. Her name, spoken like a spell. She pressed her hands to her temples, her pulse a frantic drumbeat. The door behind her was locked. The world outside was closing in. And she was trapped, not by locks or doors, but by the man who had haunted her dreams for years. The man who had changed everything. And the man who, against all logic, still made her heart race. She couldn't stop thinking about him. She couldn't stop the way his touch had ignited something in her. She couldn't stop the war between her fear and her desire. And as the rain continued to fall, she knew one thing for certain, this was only the beginning. Elara's fingers trembled as she stared at the door, her breath shallow. The silence of her apartment felt heavier than the weight of Kael's presence outside. She had rehearsed every excuse, every way to make him leave, but the moment she opened the door, his voice, smooth as poisoned honey, had cut through her resolve. We need to talk. Now, hours later, the words still echoed in her skull. Her gaze fell to the envelope on her desk, its seal bearing Kael's initials in stark, elegant script. She hadn't opened it. Couldn't. Not yet. But the air in the room had changed, thick with something electric and dangerous. Her reflection in the window showed her silver-gray eyes wide, her lips parted in a silent scream. She turned to the envelope, her hand hovering over it. What game is he playing? The question coiled in her chest like a serpent. Then, the doorbell rang again, this time, not from Kael, but from the courier. The package was addressed to her, but the return address was his. Her pulse spiked. She ripped open the box to find a single black rose, its petals glistening with something that looked like blood. Beneath it lay a note, you owe me a favor. Let's collect. Her stomach dropped. The words were a challenge, a demand, a threat. She needed answers, and Kael was the only one who could give them. Even as her mind screamed no, her feet carried her toward the door, the roses scent lingering like a curse. The door to Kael's penthouse slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing in the cavernous space. Kael stood near the window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights. When he turned, his eyes, dark as storm clouds, landed on her. You're late, he said, his voice a low rumble. Elara's jaw tightened. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. He stepped closer, the air between them charged with something unspoken. You're still here, aren't you? That means you're curious. Her throat tightened. I'm not curious. I'm terrified. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed his face. Good. He gestured to the terrace. Let's talk. The wind bit at her skin as she stepped outside, the city lights blurring into a haze. Kael joined her, his presence a physical weight. That package, he said, it was a test. You passed. But I need more from you. Her stomach churned. What do you want? He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. Your help. In a matter that concerns us both. Her mind raced. What could possibly involve her? She turned to face him, her voice steady. You're lying. His smile was cold. Am I? The wind howled, carrying the scent of rain and something darker. Elara's resolve wavered. She didn't know if she trusted him, but she knew she couldn't walk away. Not yet. The terrace door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Elara's breath came in ragged gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. Kael's words replayed in her mind, your help. In a matter that concerns us both. What did he mean? And why did she feel the need to believe him? Her hands clenched into fists as she stormed back into the office, the rose still clutched in her grip. She slammed the door shut, the sound reverberating through the room. Her gaze fell to the rose, its petals still glistening with that dark liquid. She had to know what it was. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, but the doorbell rang again. This time, it was the courier, holding a second package. Her stomach dropped. What now? She opened it to find a dossier labeled Project Voss, her name in bold, her past secrets laid bare. A cold dread settled in her chest. Kael had more than just a favor to collect. He had a weapon. And she was the target. Her reflection in the window showed her eyes wide with fear, her lips parted in a silent scream. She had to escape, but the door was locked, and the only key was the man who had just destroyed her world. Elara's fingers trembled as she unsealed the package, the wax seal cracking like a gunshot. Inside lay a single photograph, her face, blurred but unmistakable, alongside a dossier of classified documents. Kael's handwriting scrawled across the front, *, you're not the only one who knows what's in the shadows, *, her breath hitched. The gallery's entrance bell jingled, and she froze. Kael stood in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the evening light, a smirk playing on his lips as if he'd orchestrated this moment. The room felt smaller, the art more sinister. She turned, fleeing toward the private viewing room, her heels echoing like a countdown. Kael's voice cut through the silence. Don't run, Elara. You're already mine, *. Elara slammed the door shut, her back pressed to the cool wood as her breath came in ragged gasps. The room was a sanctuary, or a trap. Footsteps echoed outside, deliberate, taunting. She pressed a hand to the wall, her silver-gray eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Why does he want me? The question burned. The door creaked open. Kael stepped inside, his presence a storm. He closed the door behind him, the lock clicking with finality. You're running from this, he said, voice low. But you can't. His gaze dropped to her throat, then her hands, trembling. You want me to stop you, don't you? She opened her mouth, but no words came. His hand found hers, warm and unrelenting. Admit it, Elara. You want me as much as I want you. Elara lunged for the door, but Kael caught her wrist, his grip bruising. You don't understand what you're tangled in, he hissed. That package? It's just the beginning. I have everything, your past, your lies, your sins, her eyes flared. You think I'm afraid of you, she spat. I'm the one who's been playing your game all along. His expression darkened. You're wrong. He pulled her closer, his breath hot against her ear. You're mine now. And when this is over, you'll thank me. The gallery lights flickered. Somewhere, a security alarm blared. Elara wrenched free, her heart pounding. You don't own me, she whispered. But as she fled, she knew the truth, he did. And she was already drowning. Elara's fingers trembled as she clutched the gallery's brass door handle, the weight of Kael's lingering presence pressing against her ribs. The last time she'd seen him here, his voice had been a velvet blade, slicing through her resolve. Now, the silence was thicker, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Her heels echoed against the marble floor as she walked, her silver-gray eyes scanning the empty corridor. A low, guttural growl rose in her throat. Why had she let him back into her life? The answer eluded her, a shadow slipping through her fingers. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the screen lighting up with a message from her lawyer. Safe deposit box contents are being retrieved. Meet me at the bank by 7 p.m. The words burned into her retinas. Her pulse quickened. The bank. Of course. Where else would Kael's fingerprints be waiting? She had no choice but to go. The thought of him, of his smirk, his threats, his touch, made her stomach twist. But the contract, whatever it was the only thing that could force him to show his hand. She stepped into the night, the city's neon glow reflecting in her stormy eyes as she strode toward the bank, the weight of betrayal already settling in her bones. The vault door hissed open with a mechanical groan, revealing a cavernous chamber lit by flickering bulbs. Elara's breath caught as her eyes landed on the small, black leather box at the center of the room. Her lawyer's voice crackled through the intercom, "It's there. Open it." Her fingers hovered over the box, her mind racing. What could Kael have hidden here? She pried the lid open, and her stomach dropped. Inside lay a contract, its edges stained crimson. Her name was scrawled in elegant, familiar handwriting, Kael's. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she unfolded the document, her eyes scanning the clauses. In the event of Elara Voss's death or disappearance, all assets shall be transferred to Kael Morro. A cold sweat broke out on her neck. This wasn't just a contract, it was a death warrant. Her hands clenched into fists. Why? What had she done to deserve this? The vault's intercom crackled again. Elara. You need to leave. Now. But she didn't move. Instead, she stared at the bloodstain, her mind replaying every moment with Kael, the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd touched her. A slow, burning fury ignited in her chest. She had been playing his game all along. Her voice was a blade when she spoke. You set this up. You wanted me to find it. The intercom fell silent. Then, a low, mirthless chuckle echoed through the vault. You're very good, Elara. Too good. But you're still mine. The line went dead. Her hands trembled as she clutched the contract, her heart pounding. She had to confront him. Now. The tires screeched as Kael's black sedan came to a halt beside her. The garage was empty save for the two of them, the air thick with the scent of gasoline and something sharper, blood. Elara stepped forward, the contract clutched in her hand like a weapon. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. The package. The threats. All of it. Kael stepped out of the car, his expression unreadable. You think I wanted this, Elara? You think I wanted you to find that contract? His voice was a low growl, filled with something she couldn't quite name, regret? Anger? I needed you to see the truth. That I never left you. That I never stopped loving you. Her breath caught. Loving me? You tried to kill me. No, he said softly, stepping closer. I wanted to save you. From yourself. Her eyes narrowed. You don't get to play the hero now, Kael. You orchestrated this. You made me a pawn in your game. He reached for her, but she stepped back, the contract trembling in her grasp. You think I wanted this? I wanted to protect you. From the people who would have killed you if I hadn't intervened. His voice broke, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. But you didn't trust me. You ran. You left me. Her heart pounded. You don't get to. The words died on her lips as the intercom in her pocket buzzed. Her lawyer's voice cut through the silence. Elara. There's a warrant for your arrest. You need to leave. Now. Kael's eyes darkened. You'll never escape me, Elara. Not again. And with that, he turned, vanishing into the shadows, leaving her standing alone in the parking garage, the weight of his words, and the blood-stained contract, burning in her hands. Elara's boots crunch over shattered glass as she stumbles into the warehouse, the blood-stained contract still clutched in her trembling hands. The air reeks of mildew and iron, the dim light from a flickering bulb casting jagged shadows across the cracked concrete. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, each heartbeat a hollow echo in her skull. Why did I ever trust him? The question burns in her mind as she stumbles toward the center of the warehouse, her footsteps trailing blood from the gash on her palm. A low growl rumbles in her throat, part rage, part grief, as she kicks over a pile of discarded pallets. Beneath them, a rusted metal box glints in the dim light. Her fingers close around it, the cold metal biting her skin. Inside, a leather-bound journal lies open to a page covered in Kael's jagged handwriting. Asterisk, she thinks she knows me, but she's only ever seen the mask. Asterisk, her stomach lurches. The words blur as tears well in her silver-gray eyes. What else is he hiding? The sound of her own whimper cuts through the silence, and she collapses to her knees, the journal falling open to a photo of Kael with another woman, his ex-wife, her face half erased by time. The ground beneath her feels like it's swallowing her whole. The storage room is a tomb of forgotten things, dusty boxes, moth-eaten coats, and a single chair creaking in the stale air. Elara's fingers trace the names on the journal's pages, her pulse racing as she reads Kael's confession. Asterisk, she doesn't know what I did for her. She doesn't know what I'm still willing to do. Asterisk, her stomach churns. The sound of her own heartbeat drowns out the silence as she stumbles backward, her back pressing against a cold shelf. Asterisk, this isn't just about the contract. It's about me. Asterisk, her mind flashes to the night he found her in the parking garage, his voice a velvet blade. Asterisk, you think you're the only one who's ever bled for this? Asterisk, her breath hitches. The door creaks open behind her, and she freezes. Kael steps into the room, his silhouette framed by the dim light, his expression unreadable. He found me. Her throat tightens as he approaches, the journal still clutched in her hands like a shield. Why does it always come back to you? She whispers the thought, but he only tilts his head, his voice a low rumble. Asterisk, you were never meant to find this, Elara. Asterisk. Rain lashes the rooftop, each drop a needle of cold against Elara's skin. Kael stands at the edge, his silhouette outlined by the storm, his voice cutting through the thunder. Asterisk, you think you can walk away from this? Asterisk, her fingers dig into the rusted railing as she stares at him, the journal's pages still fresh in her mind. Mercy, the word echoes in her skull. What did he do to deserve that? Her voice is a broken whisper. Asterisk, you made me a monster. Asterisk, Kael turns, his eyes burning with something she can't name. Asterisk, I made you a survivor. Asterisk, the wind howls between them, the storm a mirror to the chaos in her chest. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the journal, but he snatches it from the air, his grip iron. Asterisk, you don't get to decide my fate, Elara. Asterisk, the sound of her own laughter cracks through the rain, wild, broken. Asterisk, then let me decide mine. Asterisk, she steps toward him, the edge of the rooftop a chasm beneath her feet. The wind tears at her hair as she whispers, Asterisk, I'm done. Asterisk, Kael's eyes widen, and for the first time, she sees something in him that isn't just danger, something like regret. But before he can speak, the sound of a car engine rumbles in the distance. Her heart stops. His ex-wife's lawyer. The storm swallows the sound, but the weight of it is inescapable. She turns, her silhouette a ghost against the rain, as the first light of dawn bleeds into the horizon. Elara's fingers trembled as she clutched the murder trial subpoena, its edges curled from the humidity of the abandoned mansion. The air reeked of smoke and rot, the once grand foyer now a graveyard of splintered wood and twisted iron. Her heels echoed through the cavernous hall as she ascended the staircase, each step a reminder of the life she'd built with Kael, of the lies, the blood, the obsession that had turned him from lover to monster. Her breath caught at the sight of his silhouette in the upstairs parlor, his back to her as he stared out the broken window. He hadn't moved when she entered. You came, she whispered, her voice cracking. Kael turned, his face a mask of ash and fury. You always do. The words hung between them like a noose. Elara's chest tightened. She could still feel the weight of his hand on her throat during the last confrontation, the way his eyes had burned with something between love and hatred. I should have left you to rot in that warehouse, she said, her voice trembling. But I didn't. Kael stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face as if memorizing every detail. And now? His voice was a velvet blade. Now I'm here. The silence between them was a living thing, thick with the ghosts of every moment they'd shared, passionate and violent, tender and brutal. Elara's pulse roared in her ears. She could still taste the salt of his sweat on her lips, still feel the tremor of his fingers as they'd traced the scars on her wrists. You don't want to be here, she said, though she knew it wasn't true. I want you to run. Kael's jaw tightened. I can't. The words were a confession, a curse. Elara's breath hitched. Why? Because I'm yours, he said, his voice breaking. And you're mine. The admission hung in the air, heavy and final. Elara's knees buckled. She reached for him, but he caught her wrist, his grip firm. You don't have to choose, Elara, he said, his voice a plea. We don't have to choose. The mansion groaned around them, the fire licking at the walls, the heat pressing against their skin. Elara looked up at him, her silver-gray eyes reflecting the flames. Then we burned together. Kael's grip tightened on her wrist, his touch searing through her glove. You don't have to do this, he said, his voice low and urgent. You can walk away. Elara's eyes locked onto his, the firelight casting shadows across his face. I can't walk away from you. The words were a confession, a surrender. Kael's breath hitched. Then stay. He pulled her closer, his lips hovering inches from hers. The heat of the flames was nothing compared to the heat of him. I've loved you since the day I saw you at the gallery opening, standing there in that white dress, your hair cascading like ink on canvas. His voice was raw, vulnerable. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I wanted you. Elara's heart pounded in her chest. And now? Now I know, he said, his voice breaking. Now I know I'd rather burn than live without you. The words struck her like a physical blow. She reached up, her fingers brushing against his jaw. You don't have to do this, Kael. I do, he said, his voice firm. Because I love you. The admission hung in the air, thick with the weight of everything between them. Elara's breath caught. Then let's do it, she whispered. Let's burn together. Kael's eyes softened, and for the first time, he looked like the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who had once been her salvation. He leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was both tender and brutal, a promise and a curse. The flames roared around them, the mansion groaning as it collapsed in on itself. The heat was unbearable, but Elara didn't pull away. She kissed him back, her arms wrapping around him, her heart pounding in time with his. The world around them faded, leaving only the two of them, entwined in the fire. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, he said, his voice breaking. Always. The flames consumed them, the mansion collapsing in a final, fiery embrace. The world went dark. The fire had consumed everything, the mansion, the memories, the lies. All that remained were the embers, glowing faintly in the night, and the faint outlines of two figures entwined in the ashes. Elara's breath was shallow, her body trembling as the heat faded. Kael's arms were still around her, his lips still pressed to hers, though both were now nothing more than shadows against the charred remains of the estate. The world was silent, save for the crackle of the dying flames. Elara's fingers traced the scars on his back, her heart aching with the weight of everything they had become. We did it, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackling embers. Kael's lips pressed against her temple, his voice a whisper against her skin. Yes. The words were a promise, a finality. Elara closed her eyes, her tears falling freely. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. For everything. Kael's hand brushed against her cheek, his touch gentle. Don't be. The fire had taken everything, but in its destruction, they had found something pure, something real. Elara's heart ached with the knowledge that this was the end, that nothing would ever be the same again. But as the flames died and the embers faded, she knew she would carry this moment with her forever. "I love you," she whispered one last time, her voice barely a breath. "I love you too," Kael said, his voice fading as the last embers died. The night swallowed them whole, leaving only the ashes of their final obsession.